Hello, everyone. Welcome to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and here we share stories from women around the world to inspire, encourage, and empower women and young girls to dream without limitations. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Onajite Clarke, and she is an owner of her own business. So I'm so excited to get to know so much more about her story. She's from the UK, and I'm just excited for this conversation. So, hi, how are you doing today, Onajite?
Oh, hi. Thank you, Mia, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. It's, yeah, 6 o'clock in the UK, so it is evening. And it's really lovely to be here today. And thank you for
um,
welcoming me on the show.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So, we want to open up the floor for you to allow the audience to know a little bit more about you and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Onajite Clarke. I'm a professional social worker, although I'm not practicing anymore. I'm an author of The Secrets of the Ukulele, and I'm the creator and owner of the Mummy blogger.
Hmm.
The Mummy blogger was set up at the beginning of this year during the pandemic. And on my platform, I want to provide a space for women and girls, sharing inspiring stories and just providing a space where women can be uplifted, encouraged, and learn from other people's stories. The art of storytelling comes from my African heritage. So today I wanted to share a little bit about how I got to be here. My story started back in 2016,
Hmm.
and I was on my way to work and I noticed someone who was street homeless, and it really bothered me that nobody stopped and cared about that person. I was
Hmm.
so passionate about it that I kind of wrote an article to a well-known newspaper and it was published. And therein started my journey. From writing that article, I proved to myself that if you really believe and are passionate about something and you're determined, you can make it happen. And that was without any kind of journalistic experience. I then went on to start penning some poems about the way I see the world. Because when I was growing up, it was difficult to talk about being creative. I look at people now and I think you've got so much. When I was growing up, I couldn't tell my parents I wanted to be an author or
Hmm.
I wanted to be an actor or I wanted to do something creative because they'd be like, you can't make money from that. So I had to bury my passions and I had to bury it.
Hmm.
And it's taken me on a long journey, one that maybe would have been shorter if I'd had places like this where I could share stories with other people.
Hmm.
So um, I wrote this poetry book about how I see the world. And then I had a really awful experience professionally that made me leave my profession.
Hmm.
And it was one of the most traumatic things that I've probably ever gone through. Everything that I had known was no longer. And I'm here thinking, what am I supposed to do? And you know what? It was probably one of the best things that happened. When I look about what happened in 2019, publishing of the book, I traveled to Poland. I did all these amazing things with not much money. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I entered 2020 and I had this calling. It was almost like it wouldn't go away. I wanted to create this platform to inspire women, young women, just women per se.
Hmm.
Because I think about how if I'd had that, maybe it wouldn't have taken me like 30 plus years to get to where I am. I would
Right.
have done it sooner, faster, quicker. And so I suppose the three things that I would really want to share is don't be afraid to try. I spent a long time being afraid
Hmm.
of not being me, not sharing who I really was. It took for me to go through some really traumatic things for me to come out of
Hmm.
my shell and face who I am and face the world as the true me.
Hmm.
Um, Being afraid to try held me back because I stayed in my own head. Yeah.
Right.
I stayed in my own head. Like, what are people going to think? Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. Why couldn't I have done it? I could have
Hmm.
done it. But the fear was greater than pushing past that fear and making that transition.
Hmm.
And then the other thing I wanted to also share was the importance of strength in falling down. We often look at disappointments or difficult situations as just that. They are never just that.
Hmm.
They are important lessons.
Right.
Yeah.
Learning lessons.
They're important learning lessons. And it's taken me a lifetime to understand that. It's taken me, the calling never changes. We all
Hmm.
have that thing inside of us that we that we're being called to do, and it
Mhm.
doesn't stop calling you. It doesn't
Right.
matter what scenario you're in, it calls
Mhm.
you loudly. The question is, do you hear it, and are you going to answer it? um, and I say that because of what happened to me, that it was
Mhm.
a traumatic situation, but the beauty that came out of that journey, if someone had told me that I would be here right now doing a podcast, having set up a business, and I have a family to run, and life still happens, I would have told them, you're crazy, but anything is possible,
Right.
even the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
Um, and another thing that I think is really important is daring to be different. Like,
Yes.
the world tells us that we have to fit in.
Mhm.
Yeah, we have to be a certain way to
Right.
fit in. And I think that that's not necessarily a true narrative. It
No.
depends on how you look at it. We all have to fit in certain extents. How we are at home to how we are at work or with our friends is different. But there's a point, maybe I can say as a woman, where I've always known, even from a young age, that I was different, but I didn't know how to handle that difference. And other
Mhm.
people didn't know. So I thought I had to change me to fit in. But when you
Right.
do that, you pretend, and it's tiring being at war with yourself.
Mhm.
Um, so daring to be different is really important. And being you, the authentic you, sometimes can be quite challenging. But if you can do
Mhm.
it, it's one of the most freeing things that can ever happen, you
Right.
know. And also, when you dare to be different and do things differently, it takes your life in some really amazing directions,
Mhm.
in as much as the people you meet, you
Right.
know. If I didn't do what I'm doing, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met all these amazing people that continue to inspire me and
Mhm.
should inspire anybody else on their own journey. Um,
Mhm.
and just as this year has demonstrated, and I would say this with all seriousness,
Mhm.
life shouldn't be taken for granted. If you have a
At
dream,
all.
life is
Every
too
day is short.
oh
Life
my
is
gosh.
short.
And if you didn't get that lesson prior to COVID,
Mhm.
that should be something that you strive to learn now. Because
Mhm.
what COVID has taught is that there's no perfect time.
At
If
all.
you're waiting for that perfect time, it is not going to happen. Okay?
I think that's the thing. We're always waiting on the right time for everything to happen, and success does not come out of waiting. Success comes out of taking action and taking action quickly. So I think this is kind of what it's taught us here. You got to be ahead of the game, no matter what. You got to be ahead of the game, and you can't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm not ready for this yet." How do you know that you're not ready for this yet? You know?
If you don't start, like you say, and my thing is, that's the other thing as well. Like, that thing about timing is really important, because if you wait for that perfect time, like you say, it wouldn't happen. But more importantly,
Hmm.
waiting for things to be perfect, nothing is ever perfect.
Right.
And sometimes that's your own fear and your own limitations. And I lived like that for a long time, where it
Hmm.
had to be perfect, it had to be the perfect time. And I just wasted some
Hmm.
time. You get it back because when you take action, you start moving quite quickly. But that perfectionist spirit of wanting things to be perfect. No, you're right.
Hmm.
Action starts where you are. If that is just one computer and one little, your phone, that's where you're at, and you take the steps to kind of get to where you're going.
Right. I
And
look at it this way. It's like, let's say you find out something that most people don't know about. You can take action there. You can say, "Oh, okay, I'll just put it off." By the time you're ready to say, "Okay, I want to take action with this," everyone knows about it. Everyone it's become saturated. So now,
Mhm.
where you have a competitive edge, you no longer have. And now you're constantly regretting because you're not taking action quick enough. And
Yeah.
that's the problem with a lot of people when they're seeking success,
Mm.
is because their failure or lack of is due to their actions. Their
Action.
actions aren't quick enough.
Mm. You're right. And I suppose, like, The journey of business is a funny one because, again, you mentioned the word success, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that because success, what we've been told
Hmm.
success is, has
I
found a
ask
lot
that
of.
question on here all the time. Like, how has your definition of success changed? Because we're always taught that it's this way. This is what defines or measures your success. But, it's different for everybody. Everybody's unique for a reason. I can't sit here and say, oh my gosh, like my success will be measured by an orange Lamborghini, when in reality, orange, I hate the color orange, things like that.
But again, the narrative that we've been taught is that success looks like working all the hours God sends, sacrificing yourself, sacrificing your
Hmm.
family, sacrificing your loved ones for
Right.
material things. And and at what cost? Health, burnout. We found that that narrative doesn't work because again, even if you look at what's happening now, people who've done all that,
Even
you
broken
know,
relationships, it
broken
come
relationships.
from trying to seek success
Exactly.
in the
And what
wrong ways.
exactly. And so now, with all that's going on, if you haven't, one of the things I've had to do is ask myself, well, what does success look like to me? And like you say, it's different for everybody, but it's certainly not
Hmm.
the narrative I was sold. No, I'm not going to sacrifice my health or my family. What does
Hmm.
success look like to me? It looks like being authentic,
Hmm.
being paid for my expertise, doing good, and it means
Hmm.
that I get to have flexibility to raise my family and have be financially secure. But
Right.
that's not necessarily going to be everybody else's definition of success. But
Hmm.
let that success be determined by you and not a narrative that's unsustainable or necessarily going to benefit you, most definitely.
Hmm.
Because I've seen so many people burn out from that, and so many people lose out. And why? It doesn't have to
Because they're
look that way.
chasing the wrong thing. It's the same way as chasing a trend. Let's say, like, you're building a house from the ground up, and everything that you pick in your home is what's in season right now.
Mm,
2 to 3, maybe 5 years down the road, you're going to be like, wow, I hate this. It just looks so outdated. And it's
mm,
because instead of chasing what it is that you really like, unless you're just really into the trendy things and you have the money to change it as it goes, you know, you're going to constantly be seeking something to fill
mm.
those voids, or whatever you're lacking. It's just like, that trend goes out very quickly. If you're tracing trends, it's the same way that you're going to chase things in your life instead of creating things that are sustainable.
You're right. I mean, but then I suppose there's another element to that as well, not just tracing those things, but a lot of people see business as being outwardly, but actually, I've learned in my journey with business that it's challenged me, it's brought up my
Hmm.
weaknesses. So everybody has different things they're going to be challenged with. So yeah, you've got the external part where you might be chasing things that aren't correct, but then there's
Right.
also the internal work that needs to be done on you, because
Hmm.
you can't do a business and it doesn't bring up your weaknesses. We all
Right.
know what our strengths are, but we don't like talking. When you have a business, it exposes that. If you're not
Hmm.
consistent, if you're not, whatever your weaknesses, it will bring it up.
Hmm.
But I suppose, I mean, I don't necessarily focus on that. But what I will say is that this is a time now where we have every opportunity to make a success. When I was
Hmm.
growing up, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media, we didn't
Hmm.
have this ability to have in technology that in an
Hmm.
instant can reach masses of people.
Right.
And that is the power of business right now. So I think,
Hmm.
for anybody who's listening or they're,
Hmm.
watching what you're doing, I think that the time is now, because there are so many opportunities without you leaving your home to make it, to reach an audience. And success won't some for some people success will come overnight. For others it will take longer,
Hmm.
but you have to kind of
Right.
stay consistent with it.
With your journey is going to be different. Your time frame is going to be different from someone else, and I think that's what you really have to realize. And I love how you brought up the point of, now we have social media and all this different technology in our lives, And I think when building a business or doing anything in your life, everything has pros and cons. Anything that is, an improvement from the past is always going to have a pro and a con. And social media can be good and it can be bad. They've also shown how social media is addicting. Are you going to let that become you? Are you going to become addicted to it, or are you going to use it for the pro side of, the aspects that it provides? They've shown how the suicide rate and depression rate in young girls has increased tremendously once social media has come. Are you going to let it change who you are, or are you going to try to find ways around it? Like, being healthy in those new technological forms is like, when you see something that doesn't make you
Mm,
feel good about yourself, delete the
mm,
app for a week or so, a month, kind of regroup with yourself, but don't let it dig you deeper in a hole. And that's the same way with business. It's like, some days you may feel down, some days you may feel up, but don't let those down days dig you deeper into your hole, where it's
mm,
going to be harder for you to climb back out.
mm. I mean, I think you're right. In anything you do, there's a negative side. So in
Hmm.
case of hand of what you were talking about regarding social media and young people, yes, we didn't know this when technology first came out, but the
Hmm.
research and the time it's evolving, we are learning that there are some negative parts to, social media. And
Hmm.
what we're also witnessing, I think it's really difficult because young people are growing up on apps.
Hmm.
It's almost like that
Literally.
shape reality. They're not even, necessarily fully matured yet, and yet the power of social media is making them feel insecure. And it's really strange because we live in a country or a world where we're providing more material things to our young people than any
Yeah.
other culture, but yet they're the most unhappiest
Yes.
young people. So we obviously are not doing something fully right, because you can have
Hmm.
someone from another country who doesn't have all of these things available and they're happy in the life
Yes.
they have. So I think you're right in terms of the social media and young people and having a balance, a healthy
I
balance.
think it's because a lot of times we see social media and sometimes it's real, sometimes it's fake, but
Mm,
you have people living certain type of lifestyles, and once upon a time, like, we weren't really exposed to it like that, where people are flexing, different types of designer clothes, different, they're getting different kind of cars and luxury items, and it makes those individuals who aren't receiving those things feel less of themselves, and
mm,
it doesn't make them feel good. So it's like the things that we're seeing are affecting us in a negative way, and it's just sometimes, just the same way as you have to detox your body, you have to detox your mind from things that are causing you to feel bad about yourself.
it's true. It's so true. And that linked on to your point about, even in business, when you have bad days, you have to
Hmm.
take yourself away. Self-care is really, really
Yes.
important. There's no point in like working and working and working and you don't feel great. I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes you have to work when you don't want to. That's part of business. But there's a different
Yes.
type of when you're not feeling 100 or you just need to step away. And
Hmm.
there's that thinking that if you step away, it will fall down. Actually, if you've created a business model, a good one, whether you're
Hmm.
there, it will run whether you're there or not. And that's self-care and stepping away and,
Hmm.
literally just having a couple of days to sleep, to catch up with your friends, to just take time out for you means that you can come
Right.
back fresher. Same concept with social media, same
Hmm.
concept with business. And the other thing you said was about authenticity. I think we're in an era of authenticity. I think that
Hmm.
previously people have got away with not being authentic. So you could say you're a vegan, for argument's sake, you could say that you believe in a particular thing, but actually you don't because it sells.
Hmm.
But then
Right.
we've also found that these people who haven't been authentic have been found out.
Right.
So
They've been
you
put on blast and
right, they've been put on blast.
social terms canceled.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also, it's almost like before you could have like a separate personality, like what you're showing and what you're doing is two completely
Hmm.
different things. But things have moved on so much so that you they're kind of like become quite blurred, and actually you
Mhm.
can't be saying something and doing something completely different, because the
Mhm.
backlash if you get found out is awful.
Right.
um so there is an authenticity, and I think, in anything you're doing, self-care and being honest about who you are is really, really important. There's no point in
Mhm.
saying one thing and there's different thing on the tin. You don't go to a shop and buy something based on a lie. You base it based on what the description
Right.
is, and you
What is the
expect to get
description? Is
that.
it going to help me? Is this what I want? You know?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, in terms of, you know um where I am right now, I would probably say that you also need to work on learning every day, like
Mhm.
upgrading yourself. Like, if you
Yes.
don't know something, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't know it." You find out, you
Mhm.
read, you listen to podcasts, you get
Mhm.
involved with people that are doing what you want to do, and you learn
Mhm.
from the best. Invest in yourself. I used to think investing in yourself is different to what I know now. You invest in coaches. You
Right.
said at the beginning of the podcast that you had a number of coaches
Mhm.
growing up and they helped formulate where you are now. That is something that is, I would honestly say, is really important.
Right.
Investing in yourself and having coaches, paid and informal coaches, because you
Mhm.
can't do everything.
Right. You can't do everything yourself. You're not always going to see how everything looks from a different point of view. Sometimes you need those different points of view to create this overall beautiful, sculpture or message or whatever you want to create. You need everyone to look at it from different angles. And it's not to say that I can look at something from one angle and the other angle at the same exact time.
Exactly. I mean, I know that when I've invested in coaches, I've paid to learn from their mistakes so that I don't have
Hmm.
to make them, because for
Right.
everything you're doing there's already somebody who's done it, and
Yes.
you are investing in their time for them to
Hmm.
teach you so that you can get to your dreams and aspirations quicker and faster. And I had
Hmm.
to learn that pretty quickly, that in a business you cannot, in the beginning you do everything, but
Hmm.
actually you can't sustain that over a long
At
period of
all.
time.
You
At
will
some
crash
point,
so fast.
crash and burn.
You'll be like, okay, like I guess I should have kind of handed some things off. And that, a lot of people who have issues with letting go or delegating is like their biggest downfall because to be successful in business, you have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to delegate successfully to the right people and know that, this is their strength, be able to judge those different things. This is where their strong suit is. Let me hand this to them. I know that they're
Mhm.
going to take care of it. I don't have to sit over here and watch over them, even if I handed it to them, because I know that it's going to be done and it's going to be done well. So,
Mhm.
just being able to implement those things into your business is definitely going to be a game changer.
Absolutely. And just kind of like, I don't know, even just sort of to add to that as well, is like, you have a steep learning curve in business, whatever business you're doing, full stop.
Hmm.
It's so steep. You don't even have time to be up in your feelings. If you were someone that used to
Nope.
be up in your feelings, before you had a business and be like that for weeks, months, you don't have that time in a business.
Hmm.
You have to just say, okay, I may not have done this very well. What did I learn? What's the learning? Move on.
Hmm.
And one thing that having a coach does is gives you an accountability partner. It
Hmm.
gives you somebody who will hold you accountable for the things that you say you want to do. Because if you're doing it by yourself, if it's me by myself, I'll be like, I'll get it done, I'll get it done, I'll get it done. But when you have an accountability, they hold you to time. They hold you to the things that you say you're going to do, and as
Hmm.
much as you're learning from them to get to where you want to go quicker and faster, they are holding you accountable. And in business, you have to
Right.
have people that hold you accountable: your tribe, your friends, your network, your
Right.
coaches, all of the people that you have in your network. They hold you accountable, and that makes a difference.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. So, if you had to say one thing to women and girls around the world to inspire them to dream without limitations, what would it be?
Dream without limitations. It would be, don't be afraid to try.
Hmm.
There is strength in falling down. It's not the
Yes.
falling down, it's the getting back up.
Hmm.
And to dare to be different. Those are
Yes,
the three
most
things I would
definitely.
say. Don't be afraid. There's strength in falling down. It's not the amount of times you fall down you get up, but it's the learning from that, and dare to be different, because the world is in need of people who are different right now.
I think those would be definitely the top three things that I would preach to everyone. It's just, going against the grain, be unconventional in a conventional world, in a world where there is um, standardability. You have to stand out.
Hmm.
Nothing of excellence comes from being ordinary.
It's
So,
true. It's so true. It's
yeah.
so
So,
true.
so for the audience members who are tuning in now, who want to, take a look at your blog, follow your journey, how can they do that?
Okay, so if you want to read the amazing stories of other women, you can find me at www.themummiblogger.com. You can follow me on Instagram at the_mummy blogger, mummy_blogger.
Hmm.
And come and see what I'm doing. Look at the website. There's a lot of work being going on behind the scenes. I'm currently rebranding, but
Hmm.
yeah, those are the two places where you can find me to find out about what I'm doing.
Love it, love it, love it. So, everyone, that's going to be in the description as always. We thank you so much, Onajite, for coming, sharing your story. This was a wonderful conversation. I feel like, if you didn't take at least one golden nugget out of this conversation, then you need to go back to the beginning and listen again.
Look, it's a real pleasure, and to be featured on what on your platform. I think it's amazing what you're doing. Women, female platforms, uplifting others is awesome. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, we thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in to Made to Dream. I'm your host, Maya Chanel, and we'll see you next time.